let's rise and shine. Empower your dreams, make the future mine. From the heart of a weary, we're lighting the way. Join the movement, seize the day.
Are you a dreamer, innovator, or change maker looking to ignite your potential and make a difference? Then get ready for Imo Lite, the ultimate radio show designed to motivate, empower, and transform you. Join us every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri as we bring you inspiring stories, expert advice, practical skills, and life-changing opportunities to help you rise and shine. From leadership and entrepreneurship to digital skills and personal growth, we have got it all. You can call in to share your story. Don't just sit back. Rise up, light up, join the movement with Imo Lite, and let's take the future together.
Together we'll shine forevermore.
Hello, hello. Hello, 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 Imo Lites, Imo State, and beyond. Welcome to Imo Lite Up Radio Show, only on Boss Radio 98.9 FM. I'm your hostess with the mostest. My name is Chinonye Ilomuanya, and every week we are feeding you with a power hour of motivation, inspiration, and impact. And today is no different. Today, we are here to light your path to success on the theme. It's a vital one for all aspiring entrepreneurships. The theme is funding and grants, specifically for startups, where and how to get financial support. And I'm looking forward to the jam-packed questions and insights are going to be shared with our financial expert today. Now, many ideas, a lot of Nigerians, many ideas, you say you have the ideas, you want to do these amazing things, but you're always saying there's lack of money. But did you know that there are actually a lot of resources out there to help individuals start and grow businesses? So today we'll uncover ways to find funding, apply for grants, and build relationship with investors. So the whole time we've been talking about, building strong networks, becoming a leader, finding your, the entrepreneurial mindset. So we've really been talking about how to boost ourselves, boost our minds, improve our communities. But today really talks about the ways to actually turn your ideas into businesses. And if you're the person who's always saying, I don't have money, it's impossible, it's only the rich that can do this, only people with money get strength or whatever, today is your day where it's like, okay, make sure you're taking notes, because there are resources out there, and I mean a lot of resources out there to help you. So I'm looking forward to it. Now, wherever you are in the world, if you're in North America, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're having either a wonderful breakfast or you've started your commute to work. But wherever you are, thank you for joining us. If you're in West Africa or Europe, well, happy lunch. We are your power hour, so we hope you're enjoying your lunch break. And thank you for sharing your lunch with us. And if you're in the Pan-Atlantic, if you're in Asia, well, whether you're coming back from work or whether you are, having your dinner, thank you for joining us today. Now, today's episode was brought to you by Pearlville School. Pearlville School is the best nursery, primary, and secondary school in Imo State. They're a private school. Their secondary school is fully boarding, 100% co-educational boarding in Avu, and their nursery and primary school is right along Ebadolu Road, Doveland Estate. So wherever you are, we love that there are quality things happening in Imo State. This is when we talk about quality education, the epitome of excellence. We believe Pearlville School embodies that. So thank you so much for empowering young entrepreneurs with access to resources. And they do have currently ongoing, they do have a summer camp for nursery, primary, and JS 1, 2, 3 going on if you want to, expand and boost your creativity while still acquiring new skills and learning various topics. And there is a leadership academy, a very extensive leadership academy for SS 1, 2, and 3 and recent high school graduates, where of course you can become, boost your career aspects, be a transformed leader. So if you're still looking for what to do this August, you either have, you have options. So thank you again to our amazing sponsor. And thank you again. Let me just take a moment to thank you again for everyone who has made this show a success so far. From our listeners, our audience, y'all have been amazing. Not just calling in, not just sending message, but you actually share things like and make comments and say, hey, look at this news. Let's, there's something cool going on. You make comments with the hashtag. We thank you for those who have promoted their business. If you'd like to promote your business, there's still a chance to. We thank you to our sponsors, of course, this show couldn't be possible without you. So wherever you are, our community, it takes a community to make this show run, and we thank you. And of course, we thank you to our partner, Boss Radio FM, for just being so phenomenal. So thank you again for tuning in to Imo Light Up Radio Show. Let's get started. Okay, so if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is how the show typically runs. So typically, we have our intro, which we've done. Then we do a Changemaker Spotlight or Opportunity Highlight, where we highlight things going on in the country, in the states, in the region. And then we introduce our guest experts. So a good portion of the show is our guest experts providing insight on the said topic for the week. And then after that, you don't tune out, because we do leave you with practical steps to take home. So we will give you practical steps you can take home and apply. And then, of course, we'll give you a challenge for the week. So we're not just here for the vibes. Of course, we infuse music. So we're not just here for the vibes. We're not just here for the good time. We're here for all of that. But we want to make sure that what you're getting on this show, you can actually use to apply to your life. And in between, of course, we love conversations. We love engagement. We love participation. So you can either call in the live studio number or send us a WhatsApp message. Or many of you have also, made comments. When we're live, we're currently live, so you've made comment on our live or send us a message on any of our social media handles. So there's so many ways to engage. If you would like to engage live and direct, you can call the live studio number at 0912 267 7989, and then the country code for Nigeria is +234 in case you're tuning in from outside. It's 0912 267 7989, or you can send a WhatsApp message and call in, but send a WhatsApp message to +234 806 999 2999. That's 806 999 2999. So again, if it's not via social media, commenting on the live feeds, which we'll check, if it's not on WhatsApp, if it's not calling in, you have many ways to engage. So we are going to get started with our Changemaker for today. So our Changemaker, we've started out, we started out with being focused on Imo State, things going on in Imo State. Then we've expanded to South Africa, to Nigeria, Southeast. Then we expanded to Nigeria by, the news of the egusi seed last week, being the first African item to go to space. So today we're even expanding it a little further to Africa. So there's this lady from South Africa. She's only 16 years old. Bolale Mfalele. She created a smart earpiece that alerts police and captures attackers. So essentially, it's called the alerting earpiece, and it resembles like a simple earring. So imagine a simple earring, but it's actually an earpiece. And in that simple earring of yours, it has a hidden camera and a silent alarm system. Now, some people might be, nervous, like, oh my goodness, someone's going to spy on me. What is this going to be used for? Why is this needed? Well, it was actually inspired to address the problem, because there has been a growing problem in South Africa of gender-based violence and human trafficking. So she saw a problem, she created a solution, she saw a need. And what it actually does is the camera, the earpiece, takes and sends photos and your current location to any emergency contact and services. So you do have to put in your emergency contacts and services, but it does capture a photo and send current location. So I think that's really, really cool. And one of the things we addressed on our show a few weeks ago is that one of the things in Imo State, even one of our guest speakers confirmed it, that we're looking at Imo State to become the tech hub, potentially the tech hub and creative hub of not just Nigeria, but they're actually considering it to be the next tech hub for Africa. So, and one of the things we talked about is if we can address the issue of safety. So thank you, Bolale, for looking into your community and saying, hey, this is a problem. If we can tackle the problem of safety, and wherever you are, again, this is an opportunity, because if you don't know where to start, one of the critical things in our country is security. I'm not saying there aren't safe places or we're not capable of security, but it's always a need. There's always a need to ensure that our communities are safer, neater, and a better place to be. So thank you all, whoever you are or wherever you are, doing your part to ensuring that people do feel safe, both that there's good security, but people feel safe. So thank you so much all for doing that. And I also want to take a moment to just ask, how are you all? I hope y'all are doing well. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're feeling good about yourself. During several times, we're about to get into the Ember month. So, the Ember month, there's a lot of holiday it's very fast moving. So if this is a chance to slow down, if this month is your chance to slow down, just take the time to relax, to breathe, to slow down, refocus, and rechannel yourself. All right. Now, before we move on to our guest speaker, I want to remind you, because last week you talked about entrepreneurial mindsets, and it was a very interesting topic where we figured out that we already know, like, our mind is our greatest assets, of course, but I remember the challenge I gave you all was to keep a notebook for 1 week, and then every day write down one problem you observed, one solution, and one thing you learned from trying something new. So I hope you all did that. So along with questions for our guest speakers or questions for me, you're also more than welcome to drop your comments on WhatsApp, to call in, and to, comment on social media, how your Imo Light Up journey has been, how your progress towards a better, more progressive life has been. You are more than welcome to. Okay, so we're going to take a very short break, and then we're going to get back with introducing our guest speaker. And I'm excited. I'm always excited about our guest speaker, but I'm excited about this guest speaker today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Girls in my crib, 0 Snapchat, 0 Instagram posting. The vibe, my dick start falling like London Bridge. I don't care if I saw you in a magazine or if you're on TV, that one don't mean nothing to me. Don't need a shower, baby, I need a free. Lick it like ice cream, as if you mean to be disgusting. It's not enough. Chop my banana, one side I lie, there's no stopping up. Go shopping up, fuck that. Me over go Lorado, breakfast go foul. Me on Danny Mujakobo. As well as champagne bamboo. I get a girl from the ghetto, cat girls from uptown. That's the life of a city boy. Oh yeah, get Dama. Oh yeah, get Jello. Oh yeah, get oh yeah, get oh yeah, get me. Oh yeah, get Mama Sheba, come back on. Make me the start to the paragon. Start to the halagon, cause you know say my people they calagon. Ogulo makbawo, as they hating on us, make we manyamo. You know I be my father's son, cause you know say I come from Potako. That's why I'm a jago. Start to the dance, I'm like I do. Koni Tolago, I go show you say bounce and Tolago. Cause I be city boy, and as I day for the street, they give me joy. Lamborghini boy, put them on Jesus and I'm not religious. Oh, I know. Me over go Lorado, breakfast go foul. Me on Danny Mujakobo. As well as champagne bamboo. I get a girl from the ghetto, cat girls from uptown. That's the life of a city boy. Oh yeah, get Dama. Oh yeah, get Jello. Oh yeah, get oh yeah, get
Hey yo, I'm not even gonna lie. I used to call myself an ugly you, but I'm not even an ugly you. I'm a sexy you, you understand? Girl all over the globe wanna up you, you understand?
right, all right. Hello, Imo Lite, Imo State, and beyond. And hello to our global digital audience. Welcome back to Imo Light Up Radio Show. I'm your host, Chinonye Ilomuanya, your host with the most. And we are about to introduce our guest speaker. First of all, thank you again to Pearlville School for sponsoring this episode and supporting youth in just literacy, financial literacy, and leadership. Thank you for all that you've done. Again, a private nursery, primary, and secondary school here in the heart of Imo State. So if you're looking at where to go to or where to send your kids to or a loved one, they are really your go-to, well established. So now we're going to introduce our guest speaker. All right. Meet Sylvia Chinonye Ilomuanya, a trailblazing leader and serial entrepreneur. Currently MD of Sundown Group, assistant head of school at Pearlville Nursery and Primary, and the head of human resources at Baus International Group. She also runs multiple ventures including Idea Grid Designs, Mise en Moire, Tippling Tales, and our Blessing in Disguise Foundation. A passionate advocate for literacy and career growth, she consults and coaches to help individuals and organizations transform bold visions to lasting success. Chinonye is our special guest on our 11th episode of the Imo Light Up Radio Show, speaking on the theme Funding and Grants, sharing insights on the funding landscape and the grant writing process. Hello, good afternoon, Chinonye. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What a background and resume you have there, ma'am.
I'm trying.
I tell people, all my experts, if you give them a compliment, they always say, I'm trying, we're trying. I'm like, oh, how humble of y'all. But we know y'all are doing great things. But thank you for joining us. I think today is a very important topic, and many of our listeners are going to take this because one of the biggest obstacles or hindrances they think they have, and I'm saying they think they have because hopefully after today they may see other options, but they think they have is in the finances. So thank you for joining us today. We do have several questions for you. Could we get started?
Ask away.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump right into it. The first one is, how did you find out about grants?
Well, there are many ways you can find out about grants. The first way is through word of mouth. From family, from friends. If they see something, they will send it to you, and so that's one of the main ways I actually found out about grants. Also through referrals. Some companies may also have competitions or grants that they do as part of their corporate social responsibilities. But the biggest way to find out about grants is just simply doing your research.
Okay.
Once you know what you want to do, the business you want your industry to be in, and so on, you just do the research and you look for grants. You can check on grants.gov. I know the UN, they always have grants on there too. And then also there are some companies that if you are the client, they also provide certain services like grant writing. For example, global drop-off logistics. If you're interested in importing and exporting your products, they can connect you with international clients and even help you raise funds through finding grants and helping you write the grants. So those are just the few ways that you can find grants.
Thank you. So what was the application process like, or what's the application process like?
So generally for grants, the application process is normally long and rigorous. It truly is, but if you already have your plan in hand, your business plan and strategy, it actually becomes easier for you to fill out those applications. So it's long and rigorous, but it also forces you to think about the things that you normally wouldn't think about. Like when people come up with a business, they just want to start and they don't have any idea about the target market, budgeting, risk assessment, and so on and so on. So it forces you, the questions that they ask, you will see that it's very specific, and so it really forces you to plan out your business very well because they're giving you money,
right?
And so they don't want to give you money just to give you money and not put it into business,
right?
So just be ready for that,
right,
when applying for grants.
Thank you. And I'm glad you said they're giving you money, because I realize some people may not even know what grants is. So if you're listening to us talk about grants. Is pretty much a sum of money you're given, either by the government or organization. It's a sum of money you're giving for a particular purpose. The great thing about grants is that you usually don't have to pay it back. Like, that's their purpose. A loan, you would have to pay back. A loan, you pay back with interest. But usually for grants, it's money you're giving for a particular purpose. So thank you for bringing that
I wanted to quickly add also that, yes, it's money that's being given back to you, so they're always careful, So you can't just write any answer to any questions. These are people that have started businesses, that have failed, and also been successful in businesses. So when writing your application, make sure you don't use the same answers for different grants. You have to format your answers to the specific grant if you actually want to increase your chances of being approved and getting that grant.
Okay, that's a really good point. That's actually a really good point. Thank you. What advice would you give to other youths looking for grants?
So the advice I would give to other youth, first of all, patience. It's not easy to get a grant. You can apply to 100 grants and you might not even get any, or you might get 10, so it's just patient, keep pushing. Also, when it comes to looking for grants, you should figure out ask yourself this question: if you did not get this grant, how can I still run this business? How do I still raise capital? Because sometimes with grants, different grants have different requirements. There are some grants that there's so many grants out there. So there are some grants that are based on age, either your personal age or how long the company has been around for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, and so on. So you can find 100 grants and apply to all of them, but it would be a waste of time if you don't know what you want to enter, the industry, the purpose, what your business is. So you have to plan that first before just immediately seeking out for money, and then just understand that you might not get it, and if you don't, it's fine. What other ways can you raise capital? So I don't know if I have time to tell a quick story.
You do. All
right. So with Idea Great Designs, before, it actually started out as us wanting to create textile prints, for the fashion industry. And so after doing all the research, we found out that the equipment, the machinery to actually start printing out these fabrics was very, very, very expensive. And instead of just throwing out the plan and so on, we sat down and thought, okay, what other ways can we actually make money? And so we're like, okay, we don't have the money, but we have this skill and we have a laptop. And so we decided the best way to start raising capital, right, for that machinery is to do what we know best, which is graphic design, creating presentations, pitch decks, logos, and so on and so on and so on. And so that is how we formed Idea Great Design for it to be catered towards branding, personal branding, and corporate branding. So we didn't just sit down and just wait for money to come. If we did that, money, who knows how long it would take, and that way we were also able to start this new business and still have a textile business. So another thing I would say is flexibility and be open. You might think, okay, this is where you're headed, but then finding different ways and adjusting, because in business you have to be flexible, you have to adjust. You never know where that business can take you, and it can even allow you to expand your services, as a way to have multiple revenue streams in your business.
I love that you said that, because it's very easy. Ideally, we like to say dream big. You dream big, but then what little things can you do before you get to that big goal? So thank you for sharing that story. That's actually quite inspiring, and I hope my audience are inspired that, hey, if you don't have the funding, that's not the end all be all. There's still many other things. Like, what can you do? You can use your skill, you said. You can use your resources, which most people, if you're tuned in here, we can say that most people have at least a phone or a laptop, so how can you use your phone and laptop and the skills you have? So thank you for sharing that, Chinonye. My next question is, how has funding changed your business?
So when trying to raise funds, it's always good to have a budget first, right? And then when you have a budget, you'll actually know which expenses are of priority. There are so many expenses, so many criteria in your budget where you can say, okay, I can actually still run this business without this, or I can find a way to raise this money easily in comparison to this, right? And so that is how you should be looking at all the expenses it requires to start a business and to run your business, so that when you are applying for those grants, you will know that if you get the money, it's better to apply those grants to the highest need, the most important need that can lead to you increasing your capital, bringing in revenue faster. And so the funding that we have received has been geared towards those expensive items, but also items that will actually generate revenue. And so I use it more of a need base, not as a, oh, let me just get this money so I don't have to use my money. That's not how you should look into it. You know?
Okay.
Prioritize your expenses and then use the money you are getting for free, because it's free. You are getting for free to tackle those expenses that you really need the most to run the business successfully.
Okay, that's really interesting. I almost wanted to segue because let me not segue because but I'll take that offline, because that deals with how the country is run. So that we can go along back and forth in that, but we won't do that now. So thank you for sharing. So how do you think someone can identify what they need? Like, what's a need-based expense?
So it's different for different companies, you know, because it just depends. Like, for example, there are some businesses where you need high machinery. For example, the textile business, you know, where you need high machinery, but before you can even get that, you can now outsource certain things, you know. So for example, if you still want to be creating your own fabric, there are companies that do exist that create the fabric for you, but make sure you have your contracts in place, you know, so that they don't have they cannot replicate your products here and your designs and so on, you know. So while you are selling your products through that, eventually you will raise the money to cut out the middleman and now start creating the fabric yourself. So that's just an example of the difference, you know. It doesn't mean don't do anything, you know.
Right.
So need based, the need is different for each company and each person. You know, some people value like equipment more than this, you know. Some people value the client base more, where they feel like the need base will be more geared towards, like, they don't mind using their own expenses to get the equipment and so on, but they would rather use the money for the marketing, for example, billboards, radio jingles, and so on and so on and so on. So it's different for each person and it's different for each business.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. That's a really great thing. Now, what are the main types of startup funding available for youth? Oh, I think this is a really good one.
Well, so there are different types of funding also. There are many ways to get money in this world. It's just that many people only think it's just one way, which is you have the money. You have to have the money yourself.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes. So of course you can definitely use your own. You can raise the capital yourself, personal investments, right? That's one way. Another way to get funding, especially for youth and startups, is friends and family. You know, if you have some family members have the capacity, you know, to provide the money for you to start your business, and that's also great too, you know. So if you don't have that, in Igbo land we have the apprenticeship program, you know, and so I hope it's not dying down, because I believe that was a very good thing that we had going. I think a lot more people were doing that in the past, but it's something that we should maintain. And I don't know if I need to explain the apprenticeship program, but basically you work under someone that has a business.
Okay.
It might be a business that you might be interested in or not, but still you want to learn how to do business, and so you work under them and they teach you the ropes of business. And then once the apprenticeship is done, they now provide the funds for you to now go off and venture off on your own to start your own business. Of course, they'll still support you, and they can still be your mentor here and there. So that's the apprenticeship program. So that's that. So once you've tried all of those things, which you can keep trying, the next thing is once again going back to research. There are venture capitals that exist, which they provide capital for youths, for startups, for different types of organizations. So venture capitals that exist out there. There are also agencies and government organizations and also private organizations that also provide funding for people, just anyone. For example, Chinonye Ilomuanya Foundation. I know every year he has this competition where he a certain number of people win. I don't remember the amount, but they win a certain amount, and he provides them with funding to start off their business. So many of those exist. It's just if you're willing to take the time to research and look for it, and then just apply, and don't be discouraged.
I love that. And they say you wouldn't know until you try. Like once you've applied, you're 50. There's a certain phrase they say, basically like, if you don't go for it, then your chances are 0% versus going for it, like increases to 50%. So apply, go for it. We're going to take a short break. So wherever you are, just take a bathroom break, stretch, warm your food if it's already cold. But we're going to take a short break, and we are going to come back soon. So stay tuned.
When other stations hear us, this is what they sing. Boss Radio 98.9 FM, other stations' nightmare.
Jama asa nunku.
Ola unchulo.
Amesere ndito busy boss.
Maido.
Akwa mo misoro.
Yeah.
Ndeve. Anuyara we.
Oe.
Mazino.
Nawo.
Eleo.
Oh. Koide. Rewado. Hey. Ibo. Maman. Hey.
Everybody make una come o. Busybody FM and Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. We dey celebrate our anniversary, and now why would they invite everybody from all walks of life to come jollificate with us? This event go happen on the 27th of September 2025. Venue nko na for Mimi Place, New Owerri. Ticket 1,000 naira for children, adult na 2,000 naira. Dress code wear any ogbonge attire wey you know say go represent any of our correct culture when dey for Nigeria. The time red carpet na 12 p.m. Kokotiko 1 p.m. event don kick off. If you know say you won't be sponsor and vendor for this event, you fit call this number 0901 344 44989. Boss Radio Day 4 years, Busybody Day 3 years. Busy Boss Cultural Festival.
The World Wide Web never found, so stay social, get in touch. Boss Radio 98.9 FM, stay social.
This is Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri, putting the community back into local radio. Stay connected and be part of the conversation. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Boss Radio 989 FM. And join us on Facebook and TikTok at Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. Visit our website at www.boss989fm.com. The World Wide Web, never found local, so stay social and get in touch. Boss Radio 98.9 FM. Stay social, stay connected.
Boss Radio 98.9 FM, stay social, stay connected.
All right, welcome back to Imo Light Up Radio Show. We're here. Our guest expert Chinonye Ilomuanya is guiding us on the funding landscape. Now, one thing I love is that she's not just sharing her insights; she's actually giving you examples. She's actually giving you links, websites to go to, the tips and like just actual practical steps of what to do. So we have several more questions, and again, if you'd like to join, I know we've have a couple of messages, but if you'd like to join us, to call in, you can actually call in and send us a WhatsApp message directly to the studio line. That's actually preferable. You can call and ask your questions or share your thoughts or your progress and comments on the live studio number, which is 0912 267 7989. So that's the live studio number to call in. You can also send a WhatsApp message to 0806 999 2999. So we're going to ask Chinonye a few more questions, and then we will also take some questions from the audience. But thank you for tuning in. So right now we've talked about the application process, what her advice that she would give for youth looking for grants, and I think one of the things is, you know, if the big goal is in there. She mentioned that she had her one of her businesses, they were looking for a missionary to print the textiles, and the funding for that will be too much, the expenses. So her and her team started from what their skills and their resources they have, their skills of designing, graphic design, and a laptop, and from there they were able to generate some income and some for the other expenses. So I love that. So Miss Chinonye, are you still there? Mrs. Chinonye, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Wonderful, thank you. I do have a few more questions for you, and I hope our audience are enjoying the time as much as I am. So my next question for you is, how do grants differ from loans or investments? You kind of answered that in the beginning, but it's fine. I think it's good to reiterate. How do grants differ from loans or investments?
So I can definitely go on and on about it, but I'm just going to give the description in simpler terms. So all three, loans, grants, and investments, are all ways to raise funding for your company, any business that you want to start. So just have that understanding. Now, when it comes to loans, the criteria, it's actually based on credit worthiness and your ability to pay it back. So if you have bad credit, the worse your credit is, the lower the chances of you actually getting those loans, you know. And loans, they're basically money that is lent to you, usually from a bank, but there are also companies and organizations that also provide loans for people, for businesses, and so on. But you have to pay it back, you know. Okay. And they normally give you a certain amount, and then they give you a timeline of when you are to pay it back, you know. In addition to that, when they give you money for your business, they also include an interest rate, which is a percentage of whatever amount they give you, that you have to add on when paying money back. So for example, if you were giving a loan of 3 million naira, and the interest rate is, let's say, 10%, so you have to repay that loan, let's say, over 3 years of time, 3 million. But if the interest rate is 10% of 3 million is 300,000. So you not only have to give in 3 million, you have to give in 3,300,000 naira, you know, back, not just the 3 million. So that's the downside of loans. One, the interest rate, and then two, the length of time. So I believe in this country, normally from banks, the loan is normally over 30%, which is very high. So in my opinion, that's not the best way to fund your business through loans, because if you don't have revenue streams coming in and you default on that loan, it can lead to future problems. So that's the last one I always encourage people to look into as a way of funding. That's the last option, in my opinion, if that's even an option, right? So then the next one is grants, so which we have been talking about. Grants is basically free money. The application is very long and is highly competitive, because you don't have to repay it back, you know. So and so because of that, it's much more harder to get, you know, than a loan is, right? So it's still the same. You apply, usually not through banks, usually through government organizations or private organizations. You apply, and then if you get the money, you get it. But they're looking to make sure that you have the necessary content and criteria, you know, and capability of actually using that money to what you applied for, and then also making sure that business is sustained and so on. So that's what grants are for. And then investments is more of if someone is putting an investment into your company, right? If someone is giving you money, right? This is not like if a friend is giving you money where they don't care if you pay back. Some do, some don't. But with investments, when someone or a company invests in your business, they expect a profit. So it's either they expect a certain amount of profit, or you share whatever profit it is on a percentage basis. And so it's decided before you get the investment. Make sure you iron out all of those details, especially in contracts, but just know that with investments you have to split your profit in whatever way, shape possible, as discussed beforehand. So grants are the only ones where when you get the money, you have no obligations to the person or the company that you receive the money from. But for loans, your obligation is to the bank to repay it, and to repay with interest. For investments, your obligation is make sure you do well enough to get profit so that they can make the money back and some.
I love that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Actually, okay, that was a beautifully well summed clarification. So before moving on, there's a question from Oge. She said, "Thank you for the advice, Ma. I applied to the TEF program. I believe the TEF program is at Tony
Elumelu Foundation."
Thank you. You're clearly the expert. I applied to the TEF program, but I got rejected. Do I apply again? If so, if I get rejected again, how many times should I keep applying? I think that's a really good question.
So the thing is, as long as it's free money and as long as you still qualify, you can still keep applying. You never know. There's no harm in applying. The most that will happen is you'll be told no. That's the most. So there's no risk in continuing to apply and apply and apply again. So people apply 5 times and they get it. So yes, you can still keep applying, but every time you apply, you figure out, okay, what could I have improved? Figure that out yourself. Another thing you can do is you can go on LinkedIn or do your research and try to contact those that work in that foundation. Try to look for a mentor or try to explain your situation and then just say, I would like to know why this and this. What are you basing the criteria on, and so on and so on? Because there's no point in applying over and over again if you're applying, answering the same questions, using the same methods, and so on. So every time you apply, make sure you use a different method and try to always improve yourself, improve your business. Because if you are still running that business, you should be seeing growth also, right? So your need for those funding might change, and then also reach out to anyone involved and then try to see, because you always want feedback on how you can do something better. Even if you still never get it, that will always help you grow. And then you can also use those same feedback to apply to other grants and funding opportunities, not just TEF.
I think that's a question. I'm glad you said LinkedIn, because that was another question. I think Serene Charles asked, what websites do I actually go to apply or look for these grants?
There are hundreds of websites. The two that I mentioned were grants.gov. That is one of them. And then there are many UN. When I say UN, I mean United Nations. There are many branches of UN organizations that are catered to the health industry, that are catered to agriculture, that are catered to different industries, and they always have grants every year. Multiple grants every year for different countries. So those are just two of the many that exist. So it's just to do your research, and then you'll see that as you keep researching into grants, you'll see that a lot more keep coming up.
Okay, thank you. Great questions y'all are asking. So you've heard that there are many resources. You can easily just Google, the grants that actually, I think Chinonye said phenomenal ones. One of my favorites, not really for grants, but I go to opportunitiesforafricans.com.
Yes.
Opportunitiesforafricans.com. There are opportunities from scholarships for universities to contents, competitions, to grants, like opportunitiesforafricans.com. If you haven't gone to it, try it today, amongst the other websites she said.
And don't they post, I think they post a new list or updated list every week, right?
Yes, they're very
week,
updated.
Yes.
They're very updated. So even me, I'm still trying to find opportunities and free
I still
money.
am too. Why not?
People think because you're at a high level, no matter level, that you stopped looking for money or grants or funding, that it's only the beginners. But no, who doesn't want free money?
And I'm happy you touched on that, because just because you are established, it doesn't mean you don't need money. Like, for example, big companies like Microsoft, Tesla, Amazon, and so on, I still receive funding from the government, the US government, and those are companies that are well established. And that's because there will always be new projects coming on. And the bigger you get, the bigger the projects. And so sometimes you might have the funding for that, and sometimes you might not. Sometimes it might require more government intervention, which requires a higher kind of funding, which a lot of times you can only get from like the Fortune 500 companies or the government, and so on. So it doesn't matter how big or small your company is, as long as you continue to exist and you continue to do different projects, you might always need funding here and there.
Thank you so much. So we do have a few questions. I have a few more questions for you, but keep your questions coming. We're currently live on Boss Radio 98.9 FM on Facebook. So if it's Facebook, if it's WhatsApp, if you want to call in, if it's through Imo Light Up messages, just keep engaging and keep asking your questions. So I do have a few more questions for you. My next question for you is, what are key tips for writing a strong grant proposal?
Key tips. There's so many tips I can give, but okay, so here are a few tips that I would say when it comes to grant writing and just grants in general. I think the first thing you have to do is identify the need and problem, right? Find whatever you want to do or start, right? You should find the solutions to whatever need or problem that exists, right? So that now becomes the basis of your idea. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, based on that, you should now have a plan, a business plan or strategy, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to start something without having a plan in hand, right? And an idea. So you can't just look at a grant and just apply when you don't have the solutions to a problem or need and a plan to go ahead with that. Then the third thing is, adding on to that, is there are so many opportunities for grants out there, and yes, you can apply to all of them, but once again, it would be a waste of time. So once you have those two things, you now look for the grants that key into the business that you are entering or you have, and then read through the requirements properly, read the purpose and the requirements. If you have a tech company, for example, that is geared towards the oil sector, you cannot apply, or you shouldn't apply to a grant whose purpose is to increase the agricultural industry. It doesn't make sense. So make sure you look at the requirements. Some grants also require you to have been running for 3 years and to have proof of that through your financial statements and through your registration, your company registration. So make sure you identify the requirements, make sure you're eligible for that grant, and the purpose of that. Once you have those three, you can now go on to I talked about the business plan and strategy, which shows your purpose, your mission, and so on, the contents of your business, basically. Then you also make sure to include your budget, any financial forecast, your planning, financial planning, and so on. Because if you're asking for money, you have to show them what you need the money for. You can't just apply for something and then not show any financial representation and think you'll get the money. I'm not going to give my money to someone when I don't know how they're going to use it, what they're going to use it for, and so on. So that's very important, and make sure all the numbers add up, make sure it's legit, and so on. You have receipts for this. So anything you spend your money on, make sure you're having receipts, and any plan you have, that's very important. Also to plan for the future, so that it might seem like a lot of money is coming in. You can have like 20 million coming in, but how much is going out for your expenses? Right. If 20 million is coming in and you're spending 30 million, you're losing 10 million, So keep track of that and include that when you are writing your filling out your grant application. Then another thing, two more things. So this one is, it's important to also include risk assessment, a risk assessment and management plan, and then a plan for sustainability, in the sense of every business, every industry, there will always be challenges and risks, and there's no point in trying to hide it from those that are giving you funds, right? Because they understand what it means to run a business. They already know the risk and challenges. So if you don't mention that, you won't seem like a serious person, but if you acknowledge it and show that, okay, these are the risks, these are the challenges, but these are the steps forward, right? How I can overcome those challenges. There will always be challenges that come out of surprise, right? But for the ones that because it shows that you understand the industry,
right?
And the business you're in. So make sure you have that. And then no one wants to give funding to someone who doesn't have a plan on making sure that this business that they have is gonna last.
Right.
Of course, you can never plan, like no one ever plans to start a business and fail, but 90% of businesses that start don't make it past 5 years, and that's an actual stat, from a couple of years ago. So it might be higher or slightly lower, but most businesses don't make it past 5 years,
right?
And so anyone that's giving you money, right, they want to know that this is a business that can sustain for years and years and years to come.
Okay.
And then the last tip I would like to add is any application you're writing, make sure you proofread it for grammatical errors, and then also for uniformity, in the sense of don't just answer questions to answer questions, because everything has to tie back to your original plan, your original mission, your original purpose of your business. And so it's very easy to detect when someone is just answering questions just to write the best answer so they can increase their chances of getting the grant. And then also when it comes to grammatical errors, it's very important to have the correct grammar and so on, because when I review grants and anything finances and just anything proposals, when I see an error, it makes me think, okay, this person is not meticulous enough. What kind of mistakes are they going to be making? And you might think, oh, it's a small mistake, but it's always the small mistakes that lead to bigger problems, and you might think it's not, just like how if you submit a proposal that you had a very high chance of getting a minute late, just because you were a minute late, you would have lost out on millions,
right?
So those small things also matter. So those are the some of the tips I would.
Thank you so much, Chinonye. So this is awesome. So we do have a question on WhatsApp, but before that, we have where has the time gone? First of all, the time always goes by so quickly. We only have about 8 more minutes left. So before I take maybe 1 or 2 more questions, or I have a question and then one question from the audience, let me just leave you with practical tips. So wherever, if you're listening, we're going to pause for a second. We'll get back to ask another question, maybe the final question to Mrs. Chinonye. But just bring out your paper and and your pen. We're about to take down some practical steps. Okay, so here are 5 practical steps to finding and applying for startup funding this week. So you've heard the amazing, insightful things Chinonye has spoken on, but here are 5 practical tips we're leaving you. The first is make a list. Search for grants, competitions, and loan problems online. Chinonye gave you a list of opportunity, a list of websites. I've given you one, so you can just do a Google search, but also make sure they're credible. But so you can just go online and search for grants, and then make a list. The second is prepare your pitch. Craft a clear summary of your business and its impacts. You can put it on Google Drive or on a document, just so that you can always have that ready. And then, of course, as Chinonye said, you can tailor it to each grant. But have a clear summary of your business, its impact, its goals, essentially a business plan. The third is gather your documents, which is okay. One of your documents is business plan. The other ones with grants and funding, they always want to know your financial projection. You're asking for money, but what are you going to do with it? And what is our return of investments? How are you going to, sustain that? And then, of course, your identification documents. Most grants won't give you a grant if you're not registered, if you're not, accredited, or incorporated. The fourth is ask for help. Reach out to mentors or organizations that guide applicants. She mentioned Global Drop-Off Logistics. They do help applicants. They're a U.S. company, but they do offer, I believe, virtual support. I'm not sure. No, they do offer, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay, they do. The fifth is apply consistently. So I think that answered one of your questions. Don't get discouraged by rejection. Keep applying. Know what you did wrong and maybe try a different approach, but keep applying. So all these tips are amazing guest speaker covered, and which also taps into your question. Now we will have time for maybe just one more question, but before that, your challenge for the week. Your action challenge of the week is to research at least 3 funding opportunities for your business. So we already know you have a business, all right? So you have your documents all set. Research at least 3 funding opportunities for your business. Draft a simple pitch or business summary, but let's take it a step further. Create your business plan. Create a business plan if you don't already have one. And the last one is reach out to one mentor or funding organization for advice. And she also talked about LinkedIn as a great source. So I think this is very doable. Research 3 funding opportunities, draft a simple pitch or business summary or business plan, and then reach out to at least one mentor or funding opportunity. This is when we talk about taking your business to the next level, we are at a critical moment. So, Chinonye, I have one more question for you. This is from the audience. She said, hello, Imo Light Up. Awesome presentation. And Madame is doing justice on the topic. Yes, she is. Every word is just so well thought out and so insightful. So thank you so much. So she really is doing so well. Madame is doing justice to the topic. My name is Ify, please. Her question is, what are the common pitfalls to avoid when applying for foreign grants, and what role does capacity building play in securing foreign funding? Whew, that's a heavy one.
Okay, so as the first part, the common pitfalls?
Yes, what are the common pitfalls to avoid when applying for foreign grants, and what role does capacity building play in securing foreign grants?
Okay, so the common pitfalls, a lot of people, when they are applying for international grants, they want to beef up the numbers in the sense of they misrepresent the kind of company they are and so on. So honesty in every question, don't overpromise in your finances, in terms of don't overpromise, or don't say that you are going to make this certain amount when the reality is you're more likely to make half of that. So a lot of people just overpromise or put false information with false registration, because they might think, companies outside will not know the truth anyway. So definitely avoid that. That's the main thing to avoid, and then to make sure your answers are easy for someone else to understand. Your business is easy for someone else to understand, because they won't invest in something that they don't understand, and then the second part of the question, quickly.
What role does capacity building play in securing foreign funding?
Capacity building.
Yes.
You have to be able to carry out the business, and then you also have to have the knowledge to do that. So, and it's easy I'm sure, because foreign companies, they always get many applicants from different countries, and so it's easy to detect if someone is capable of doing this or not, or carrying out this project or not, and then you just have to continue building on your business. You have to show that you're still doing this, or you're still capable of carrying this out without the funding. You can't come out you can't seem desperate.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of Imo Light Up Radio Show. Thank you to our amazing sponsor, Pearlview School, the best nursery, primary, and secondary school in Imo State. Thank you to our amazing guest speaker, Chinonye Ilomuanya. So wherever you are, join us the same time next week. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and continue the conversation with hashtag Imo Light Up, IMOLITEUP. Again, I'm your host, Chinonye Ilomuanya, and this is Imo Light Up Radio Show, only on Buzz Radio 98.9 FM. Until next week.